Yeah. Oh, hold on. Okay, it's letting me go now. There we go. Welcome. So welcome. Hello, hello, hello. So quickly coming on here. Man, there is since last night. There's just so much. There's always so much. Um, yeah, it's interesting how much has happened in this last week. And, from an American Pope to India war to things put right now, the display of military. I mean, we just had the VA Day in the UK. Um, the march for Russia, a huge display there. So huge display in the army. But the one thing that I just learned today that I found very interesting, and it has to do with habeas corpus and the Constitution, and how, and it hasn't been fully implemented yet, but I'm going to tell you there's a lockdown coming. And it's not a kind of lockdown that you're thinking about, but there is a lockdown coming, and especially in the United States. So, because there's a part of the Constitution where there has been, at the higher courts, where there's been infiltrated in some way, that you're going to see martial law being called in the United States. And this is where, they're changing the name, a military, being a military name for the borders in the South, and how they're really putting more military on their borders. Trump just announced how anybody who's illegal that wants to leave, that, it comes forward, that he will allow them to leave. But if they are found after this time, that they could get anywhere from 10, 20, or even 40 years in jail. And even those who are harboring them. Now, this is something I could see. When I said, things are going to get kind of crazy. Yeah, things are going to get really crazy. And especially, I mean, even in the States, they're making, they institute it where how long you're going to be staying, registering, and everything else. That was all part of the setup, right? They also have where government ID, so a real ID, is being implemented. They're starting to implement that in Canada as well. So having the real ID. And as I was speaking about last night, about scanners and everything else, that's coming forth. So this is also where they're able to take back their land. So a lot of land, Chinese have bought land around military sites and that. And if once they go totally to the martial law, that it's military court, it's not regular court, right? And there's curfews and there's everything else that goes along with it. So we're entering into this interesting time. And even this is just right after our PM went to the White House. And uh, call me conspiracy theorist, give me my armadillo. I'm putting my armadillo hat on right now. I wish I really had an armadillo hat. I put it on right now. Maybe I should go. No, I don't have any tinfoil. But putting that on, that our PM has already been infiltrated, by the Chinese government. And I wouldn't even, well, that's controversial. I think it's a controversial thing I want to say about the First Nations and things about with the First Nations and how they are totally rebelling against everything that's happening about Alberta. Alberta, the whole thing of separation is just going to ramp up. I can't see her waiting till next year. Not with what is going to be unfolding in the States. I can't see her waiting that long, because things are just going to get really, things are going to start getting a lot crazier, we'll put it. So meaning that we're going to start, or the Ottawa doesn't want Alberta to leave, all right? there's a division there, and doesn't want the western provinces to leave. A lot of people want to stay in Canada because, they're Canadian and all their rights and everything. But because of what has happened, and I mean, even I was just watching, I think it was a TikTok, somebody just entering Edmonton and the amount of tents outside of Edmonton, of people just, supposedly homelessness and stuff like that. So people are getting to a point where they're getting frustrated, they're getting overwhelmed with this. So the uprising is coming, and wanting to be able to control who's coming. Moose Jaw, I know, Charlene, you live in Moose Jaw. Moose Jaw is one of the places that has been circled, we'll say, of bringing more migrants in. That's what, to Canada, and bringing them into different smaller towns in Saskatchewan. And wanting, and you're probably already seeing it, it's already there, but they're really going to be pushing this more, wanting to make a bigger population. So if they have the bigger population, then they can have more of the control, right? Because usually what happens with first generation immigrants, they vote liberal, right? Because it's the liberal parties that give you everything. And so this is what they're looking at, and Carney already being having some, being controlled. And Trump knows this. Trump's not stupid. He sees it. He's, and that's one of the reasons why he's not lifting the tariffs. That's why he's going to be going harder on the tariffs, because he can see what's going on. With the whole gamut, and people get all upset about this, and I know this is, I know a lot of people, they're wandering away from me. They're like, oh my god, she's going down these things. But I'm giving you these warnings, and these are the warnings that people are going to have to start looking at. Because if you think the Revolutionary War, I mean, it's already started. They already arrested some judges, right? We're going to start seeing it more. There's supposed to be a meeting this coming week with Carney and all the premiers. Yeah. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. I As I say, she's playing 4D chess in this all. And they're talking about, you know, they want to appease First Nations and everything else, and that I yeah, First Nations is like, I think that they've already been compromised. I mean, you wanna stay in, you don't wanna become your own sovereign, obviously not, because you're all these chiefs are uprising, but these chiefs get a lot of money, or their reserves get money, right? And where do they get the money from? They get the money from the federal government. And so there's a lot to be said there. But if they've already been compromised, or something's been compromised, of course, China wants to have things to do with the First Nations, because First Nations sit on a lot of royalty rights. They sit on a lot of, sit on this land that does have a lot of mining and oil and etc. So this is where it's going to be interesting, and especially when it comes to Canada, and how our government has already been infiltrated. We already know that. We've already seen it. But this is where I can see, even with what I'm saying and what I'm talking about right now, um, it could be held against me, right? So a lot of things are going to be held against me in what I'm saying. But I really want people to know that, you think if the United States goes under martial law, and that's everywhere, that's where you're going to start seeing, when the immigration teams and start going into certain places, and especially into, um, I mean, they've already taken over one station because of Amtrak. Amtrak is a, I think it's a federally funded, so they can take over this one station in New York, and they're taking it over. And it's one of the busiest stations in New York, for the subways, and taking it over. So it's going to be federally controlled. So if they start taking over one, I mean, it's very strategically, things are being strategically done. I mean, right now they do have a switch that if a bunch of drones come in, that they can kill all the drones at once. They have that technology. They had to wait till a lot of the technology was up and ready to go. They have technology that they can hover over your house and see how many people are in your house and what's going on in your house. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. There's nowhere you can hide. And this is where it's where, for people, and I'm going to say, if you're, again, with all of this happening and with all of this going on, where, even to traveling to the States is going to get harder. And where, they're already wanting to take your name and information and stuff to go to the States. I know some of you are saying, well, I don't want to go to the States anyways, but it's going to become more of a more difficult than per se. And it's going to be becoming more difficult when it's going to come. Um, no, he hasn't declared it yet. If he declared it already, martial law takes over everything, everything. And it is constitutional. He can go through the Constitution to do this, right? He hasn't declared it yet. Everything's being set up in place. It's not done yet. Because the thing is, they take over your phones, they take over your TV, they take over everything. Everything is done through the army. You don't have state police, you don't have that. It's gone through the army. Everything, every legality is all done through the army. You don't have court. Like court is the army. Right? And this is in the United States. Now, Canada isn't far behind with all of this happening. And I think with Carney, the way he is, he doesn't want to lose, because to lose Alberta is to lose Canada. And so a lot is being put on the table. And I do think that the NDP and those guys, they've all been infiltrated in some way. I know, even when he was uh, mayor of Calgary, I think, because of our affiliations of our sister town and everything else, I really feel like he's, there's a lot of Chinese influence. Now, China is a country that really wants to, um, they want to be the negotiator. They want to be the good guy. They want to come in and be the good guy. I mean, we've seen them trying to do that in China, but the thing is that once they're in there, they want to take over your resources. They want to take over everything. It's like, they want to infiltrate everything to where it's going. So it's interesting because they're kind of like they're a parasite that kind of waits for the opportune moment to pounce and then take over. And that's what they do. And as I looked at, of course, the astrology today, and that's what I base things on is the astrology. Oopsie, sorry. Um, the cosmic surf, I called it today. Um, and trying to put a really positive spin, but on things, but it is a cosmic spin on everything, where we are wanting to bring in a beautiful positive energy. They own a lot of land by military sites, burn sites in the USA. Yeah, but as soon as they call military law, they can take that over and they can't go through the courts. It's done. It's the same thing in World War II, what they did to the Japanese on the West Coast. They took all the Japanese and they put them in concentration camps till the end of the war. They did that here in Canada as well. And they took all the Japanese from the West Coast and they brought them into the interior, either interior to the Okanagan Valley, but into the Kootenays and set up camps all through there as well. This time is like now they're with the military law and rule is that they can go and they can take back all the land. They can take back any land they want. Doesn't matter under military law. And this isn't something that's gonna last a year. This is gonna last a while. This is really going to, bring in some big changes of how things are gonna be run for a while. And I'm gonna say by the end of summer, into the fall, this is all gonna be implemented, if not even sooner. So it is, it's just a lot of, and you got your distractions. You got the Diddy trial that's going on right now, and the number one witness who used her name is MIA. We don't know where she is. So either she's been paid off, dead, or Venus in its shadow at the end, she's off trying to rekindle some kind of crazy love or something. Um, so she's MIA right now, and the trial starts on Monday. We got the whole thing with Justin Bieber is just crazy, and smoking a bong in Greenland, I think he is right now, off on a boys' trip, just totally off in isolation. Just it, you know, and the thing is with the Diddy trial and stuff, and I've also said that um, his his chart is very similar to Kurt Cobain, and and the energies with Kurt Cobain. So that's something that kind of worries me. I mean, he wants to get closer to God, but he's pushing God as much far away as he can. But I think even though he was abused and everything, I think he ended up, um, very much like Usher being an abuser himself. So, well, Trump's going to be announced. Trump already made a big announcement yesterday. He already made the big announcement for the immigration, right? He made the announcement of telling people like, okay, you want to leave, you leave because we're going to be starting to really go down on any illegal immigrants. That includes people who've been in the country for a long time. And even though they've been in the country for a long time, they're illegal. He wants to get rid of all illegal immigrants out of the country. And if they leave nicely, that'll go to their favor if they when they want to reapply. And that's the whole thing. It's to they'll have to do it the proper way. And with military defense along the southern border is strengthening up, right? And he's already declared um, the cartel a terrorist organization. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, definite for him to buy stocks. I don't know. I have to look into that one about buying stocks. You just have to. I mean, I can't see him off the cuff just say go buy stocks, right? Um, but I would definitely there are some really good stocks out there to buy. I mean, even though the stock market's crashing, the thing is you gotta know how to play the stock market. You gotta know what you're doing. I mean, Warren Buffett is the one person. I mean, he just stepped down from his company, which is one of the largest companies there is. I mean, if you wanna buy stocks or get in shares with that, I mean, definitely. So, it's you have to the thing is that in what he says, you gotta go to this whole thing. This is the whole thing, it's like even with TikTok and stuff like that. It's like, when I see something on TikTok, I go and do a deep dive to find out truth. What did he say it? When did he say it? How did he say it? What were the contents? Who asked the questions? What was the whole thing around it? A lot of times people take things from TikTok and they're like, "Oh my god," and I accidentally did that too with what Carney was saying about the cars and stuff, and I went, "Holy shit, that was AI generated. I got duped." Um, this is where people have um to be aware. And definitely, yeah, buy stocks, invest in your country. Why not? I mean, that's the whole thing is that he wants people to invest in the country. Right now the country has made what is over $50 billion because of the tariffs in just a week. So, I mean, he's telling people to invest in their country. And I think, yeah, that's a good thing. Right? The stock market is in the United States. It's the main stock market. You look at the main stocks, invest in stocks, invest in your country. And if that's what he's saying, I mean, definitely that makes total sense. That makes total sense, right? See, people have to understand like you look at Trump's astrology. Trump is very interesting when it comes to his astrology. He's gonna speak his mind. He's gonna do what he needs. He's also when it comes to, um, his human design, he's got the money line in his sign, which is very unusual. So he's out to make money. He's money comes to him, he can make money, he can lose money, but he can make it back. He's a manifestor generator. He's one of the highest vibrating energies when it comes to human design when you look at his chart. He is also has the mating line, meaning that, family orientation, children, sexuality is very important to him. And his family is very important to him, and how his family is. So these are some of the things, that are part of him. Of course, he has other traits. He is yeah, I know, I've checked Barron's. He's also one that he's there to do what he needs to do, and he doesn't give a shit. You're not his friend. You know, he may be nice to you, but he's not his friend. Barron's chart is there to please his dad. His chart is very much aligned to his dad. When he was born, his dad was off with the without off with that starry chicky poo girl the night he was born. So there's a lot of regret and everything else that goes on between the two of them, a lot of guilt. But Baron is very much, his chart is of a leader. He has a leadership chart. He has a chart of being he is also a manifestor, I think. He also has his chart is very in that vibrational energy as well. His association to his mom is extremely strong, and you can see that in what he does. But he's there to I mean, there's a lot of that has to do between him and his father, and healing to be done between him and his father. So yeah, it's interesting, even with when you look at um even how the Leo King, about 2 weeks ago, when he talked about who the next pope was and how he did it with the astrology, that's all he took it on, because the one guy's chart was very similar to the chart of World War II and the energies of World War II, and that's how he ended up picking it, right? Just by looking at different things, and just looking at different parts of a person's chart can tell you a lot. Can tell you a lot what's going on, right? Like a lot of Pluto Scorpios right now, they're going through. They're thinking, especially the earlier ones in '87 and stuff. They're thinking that they can come in and rule the world, but they're not. Pluto and Scorpios are hard knocks, man. It's still the Plutos in Leo and Virgo are the ones that are going to be ruling the world. Pluto Sagittarius are the ones who are going to war. They're the ones who are going to get positions and everything that are going to be having to rule the world. And the Pluto Libras or the Pluto Scorpios are, they're going through a square. Some of them are going through their Saturn return and nodal return. So they're going through a lot of transformation and change. If they're around 37 or so, this is the time, their make or break time. This is the time that they can really get out there, really make it. It's their nodal return. They can make something of themselves if they really get out there and apply themselves. If they don't, and they're in their 40s or so and 41, and they're not, and they're crying the blues because they don't have the children, they don't have the career, or they're the ones who are going to be struggling with having money issues, right? So it's interesting when you start looking at the different scenarios that are going to be happening with a lot, and especially with the ones that are born in 90, 90, 91, 91, 92. These ones are going through like the dark soul of the night, like literally going through. They're seeing their lives crumble, they're seeing things crumble, they're having a hard time finding jobs, or they're losing jobs. There's a high alcoholism and drug addiction in that age group, and those are age groups are the kids from 91, 92, 93, right? So it's, you sit back and you watch, you're like, holy shit, there is a lot happening, and dismantlement that is going on. And as we go into this, we're going into the fullness of the moon. I just finished everybody's reading for their full moon readings, and this is we're coming in, to wanting to balance, to wanting to get things off in this full moon in Scorpios. It's almost there. This is the calm before the emotional tide rolls. Things are just going to get extremely emotional, especially as we're heading into next week. Venus will be out of shadow by Wednesday of next week. So we're going to, have a little bit of fresh air with that. But then we have Saturn will be coming into Aries. And, and the energies with the Neptune, Saturn, and Aries, which is very disruptive, which is very transformational. And it really is getting people to, um, shake up, because a lot of things when it comes to your rights and everything will be taken away for people. If people want to come home, I think they're going to have a harder time coming home. And um, is so if you're out of the country, and if you're out of the country for a certain amount of time and you're leaving the country and you're wanting to come back in, they can make it very difficult for you, even though you might be a citizen of that country. In Europe right now, I mean, they're really pushing visas and pushing people to have those things, is part of, again, we want to know who's in our country, what's going on. And even though they're letting in all the other people through the back door, which, for a lot of people, makes sense. Seems Barron has big balls. I saw a lip reading when he spoke to Biden. Oh yeah, when he spoke to Biden I saw that too. Yeah, some of that, you gotta, I don't know, some things you gotta take with a grain of salt too, right? Biden was just on The View, but he's an old man. He's an old man, right? And yeah, it's where some things you just have to, I don't know. You got to use your discernment with everything, right? And a lot of people, and it's just and where I think, not to blow my horn, but being a Scorpio and having a lot of Scorpio energy, that I'm very, especially very critical when I see things, very critical, and in understanding my knowingness, and know what I know and trust what I know. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, but what about this? What about this?" And I'm just like, "Okay, you believe what you want, you see what you want, right? That's okay." And then I'll sit back and just let them do what they need to do through it all. But this is where it's understanding that you really have to, because we got a full moon in Scorpio too. So this is where harmonizing on the outside, but under the surface, tensions might brew. So there might be a lot of tensions that are brewing. And it's at 27, we're going into the earlier degrees of this, and it's intense. It's intense. We got the Saturn and Moon coming up, subtle wisdom. The moon is squaring Saturn, so don't take rejection personally. So things are going to get rejected, things are going to get thrown out, and people are going to get very upset about this, and not understanding, why is this all happening. And so it's really important to ground ourselves. you know we got to break free from the old comfort zones. And this is where, if the soul is restless, it's because it's growing. There's a lot of restlessness that's happening in the world, and that's going on in the world. And we really have to embrace it, and not overthink it and get upset about it. I mean, that's a huge one. Dandelion root is a really beautiful one to have today, and have dandelion root and rose quartz. And I put out the affirmation today, and I did it with the god and the goddess playing with the universe. And that's what they're doing. They're playing with the universe. They're reorganizing things, getting it. They're having a great time doing it. We're stressing out over it all. That, oh my God, this isn't working right. Oh my God, this is going on. I look at it as, God's shaking everything up, and we may not like who the new pope is. We might not like what he's saying, or the tweets that he did, and whatever else. We might not like, oh, Trump said this and Trump did this. Or to Carney, look at what Carney's doing. He's calling all the premiers, and what's going to happen there. I feel like it's like this is the divine will of shaking things up to making it uncomfortable so we can create something new, so we can create something more powerful. I mean, this is also awakening where, the birth rates are the lowest they've been in 100 years in 2023 in the United States. Like, holy shit, right? Why is that? I don't know, you know? I just posted, how um children's hospitals have more vaccine injured children coming in, right? And what does that mean? What does that look like? And all these children are coming in with blood disorders and other disorders that are coming in, cancer, birth rates. I mean, women trying to get pregnant. There's this one woman, anyways, it's a big show down in California, live, whatever, on TLC. But she's having her second miscarriage in 6 months. She's a healthy young woman, but she's vaccine compromised, right? She ran and took the vaccine. She ran, "Oh, we gotta do this. We gotta save the people," whatever excuse they used. And now in the United States, they're calling back. They're calling back, if people were let go from the army because they decided not to take the vaccine. They're calling them back, that they can now re-enlist because the officers that were in charge, and if you look at some of the officers that were in charge of during Biden's reign, were like, oh my God, fuck, that's the leader of the government, that's a general, like, excuse me, a he, she, it, whatever. No. And so we're starting, people are starting to sort of see these things, awaken with these things, but pay the consequences, right? You got to pay the consequences. I mean, Moses never got to go to the promised land. Why? Because he defied God. Not that God didn't love him. God didn't, loved him dearly, but he says, "No, you're going to die here. And don't ask me again, because this is the truth. There's consequences to our actions. There's consequences to what we do and how we say." But before, there hasn't been any consequences. It's just been a free for all. And now it's like coming in and saying, okay, there's consequences to what we do. There's consequences because I didn't exercise all through my 50s and 40s. Of course, there's consequences. I'm a jelly roll. I'm a jelly roll. You know, I'm that little squealy pig trying to get through that little hole. I can't make it. You know, it's the consequences that it's being paid onto my body, right? So what you're doing, you're going to pay for it. And sometimes you think, oh no, it's all going to be fine. But there's what you are doing, or the actions that you are taking, all have, where this is the truth. And that's, having people standing up and being the truth sayers more and more and more. And that makes people uncomfortable. People don't like to hear it. People don't like, to acknowledge that. And that's where we're at. And the more it comes out, the more things that are being said, the more things that are going on. I mean, Trump just backed out of Israel because he said no. He's backing out of Russia and stuff. So when things like shit like that happens, right? This is the shit. We're preparing for war. We're preparing for things to start to hit the fan immensely. And it's not going to be something that is easy. That's for sure. So buy me a coffee. Mama ran out of coffee, so you can buy me a coffee. The link and everything is up there on my Facebook. Plus, Mama has to buy pee pads for the dog. Yes, I put pee pads down for my dog. Yes, she goes for walks. Yes, she goes outside. But she has issues. She has pooping issues too. You can't watch her when she poops, and she has to basically go up on a tree to poo and hide to poo. She's quite funny. She's a hilarious one. But I need to get pee pads. So, and also Mother Day special for readings is on sale for $88. And I have a lot of things that are going on, and just to promote them, continually getting out there and doing the job and saying what I need to say and promoting what I need to promote. So, and I will be in Manville in May 31st. I'm going to be, no, in Vegreville. I'll be in Vegreville at the Shine Psychic Fair Market. It's May 31st in Vermilion. Okay, let me get my V's right. It's in Vermilion, and it's from 10 to 4. And so I will be there. I can take, if anybody wants readings, I can take readings, pre-book readings between 2 and 3:40, and they're all $55. So at these fairs, they always put a price on the readings, and the readings are $55 and they're 20 minutes long. So if you are wanting to pre-book for your reading in Vermilion, and this is a reading to be done in Vermilion at the Psychic Fair. So, and her fairs are usually really good. Like, she has a phenomenal market. I think did I miss one? I think I only missed one of her markets. They've been going on for quite some time now, and Vicky's really perfected it. I mean, she's done an awesome job with it. So, so if you're in Vermilion and you want a reading from me, a personal reading in person, I will be there live. And you can pre-book your readings between 2 and 3:40. And you have to get a hold of me. I put you down, and it can't be before that time for pre-booking. So yeah, and the doors open at 10. I usually book up when I'm there. We'll see how this year goes, but going by years gone by, I'm fully booked until the very end. So if you are wanting to get especially an in-person reading for me, because they're very rare. They're rare. I don't do them very often, in-person readings. So if you're wanting one. So the card that jumped out is the 5 of Pentacles. And I think that's what people are going to be feeling. They feel the crunch, they feel it, but they're not seeing the light. They're feeling the hurt and the pain and everything that's around them. It is the dark night of the soul. Like, they're feeling that pain and feel things that are crumbling down. Yet, the 5 of Swords comes in. So we got double 5. So definitely change is happening. Double 5s, there is some kind of change. There's an activation that's going on. And it's sort of a tug of war of energies and frequencies that are happening right now. And we feel like we're being tossed around like a salad, you know? And, we want to get everything up from the bottom, and we're still trying to get everything up from the bottom. And it's still sort of lingering there. So we feel like we may have won, but we haven't won. There's still things that we are having to deal with, but we still haven't totally dealt with everything. And I think a lot of things get shuffled around, and we put things under the carpet. So we need closure before we can move ahead. So from any traumas and everything. So if there's things that are going on that you're not dealing with, that are sort of harboring there, this full moon is going to start pulling it out. That's what Scorpio does. We pull it out, get you to look at your shit. Even though you don't want to look at your shit, we're going to make you look at your shit, right? And ask you if it's true. So don't let the negative thoughts or opinions of others affect you. Know that, yeah, it feels crazy, and but there is light. There's light. You can go in the church, go there. There's light that's there. And the king of passion comes in. So the king of, I know my passion, I know my light, I know my strength. I can go ahead and do this. Hunker in on that. Know that you have it. But then you might feel like you have it, but then you're questioning everything. You're doubting yourself. You're doubting. Think of, take a look at your doubts. Take a look at what's holding you back and what you keep asking yourself. Am I good enough? Can I do that? Well, okay, then that's the devil trying to creep in and hold you back from doing what you really need to be doing, and maybe stopping you from creating the abundance in the world that you are needing to create. So by putting one step in front of the other. There you go. So I'm under 45 minutes today. It's pretty cool. So, this is where I'm going to love you and leave you, and all of you have a beautiful Mother's Day. And for those who are in the journaling club, I will see you guys tonight. So for the journaling club, it's tonight at 7 o'clock. You should have got a link for that. I will resend it out to make sure that everybody got it and are there. So have a blessed one, everybody, and we will talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye. And